Hello, and welcome to the movie Thingamabob. This time I thought we'd get into the festive season by talking about some of the Christmas movies that I like to watch every year that get me into the festive spirit. You've probably seen most of these movies, but I thought it would be fun to remind you why you should watch them again, or maybe for the first time, and also give you guys with families something to watch together, or something you can put on for the kids to keep them from being bored while the adults get merry over the Christmas period. Also, please share any of the movies you like to watch at Christmas down in the comments and like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. With that being said, let's get into it. The first movie we're going to look at today is Klaus. It released on Netflix last year and I heard good things about it, but I didn't get a chance to watch it until this year. I can easily say that I'll definitely be adding it to my list every Christmas from now on though. Klaus follows the story of Jesper, a young man who has grown lazy and dependent on his rich father who is the head of the postal service. To teach him a lesson, his father tells him that if he doesn't get the postal service up and running in a desolate place called Schmerensburg, that he will be disowned and left without his inheritance. When Jesper reluctantly arrives at his new home, he realises he's got more than he bargained for, because not only is it in the middle of nowhere and freezing, but the locals are part of a generational family feud between the Ellingboes and Crumbs, which means that they are more likely to attack each other than want to send a letter. So out of desperation, Jesper takes on the job of delivering a young boy's drawing to a house in the woods, where he meets the titular character Klaus. Klaus is huge and imposing and scares Jesper away after he catches him inside his workshop where he makes shelves full of toys, but not before Jesper drops the young boy's letter. Later on, Klaus approaches Jesper, wanting his help to deliver a toy to the young boy, and we learn he's not so scary, and that's where the adventure really begins. I went into this movie not really knowing anything about it, and I was a bit wary that they were going for a more realistic story of where the Santa Claus legend came from. And while the movie does have magical elements to it, I actually really enjoyed the way they explained how parts of the lore of Christmas came to be. Whether it's why Santa uses reindeer in a sleigh or how he got his clothes and became the legend that delivers toys every Christmas Eve. The way the characters grow over the movie was great as well, like the disheartened teacher trying to earn her way off the island because the kids can't go to school together, or the children who learn to play with each other after being taught from birth that they are enemies. They all have their own arcs that evolve over the movie, including Klaus, whose backstory is moving but also shows you who is under the gruff woodcutter image that he portrays. One big standout was the animation. They went for a classic 2D animation, but also used a new technique where they used lighting to make the movie have a 3D quality. I'm hoping we get to see more of this style because while there's a lot of great CG animated movies like the ones Pixar make, for example, I don't think that will ever beat classic 2D animation for me. I highly recommend Klaus if you haven't seen it, and if you have, you should go and watch it again because it's the best Christmas movie that's been made in a good while. Next up, The Santa Claus. This was one of my favourites growing up and is still up there in my best Christmas movies to this day. I love its unique take on the Santa mythos, and that Santa isn't just one man, but a job and a contract that you sign when you put on the suit. Tim Allen stars as Scott Calvin, a toy salesman for a large corporation who is obsessed with work. It's affected his life to the point where he's divorced from his wife, and this Christmas it's his turn to get his son Charlie. His ex-wife and her psychiatrist husband stop believing in Santa at an early age, and this rubs off on Charlie and upsets Scott because he wants his son to be a kid and not grow up so fast. On Christmas Eve, after hearing a clatter on the roof, Charlie wakes up his dad, so Scott goes outside to check it out and accidentally scares Santa into falling down. Scott realises what he's done, and after reading that he needs to deliver the rest of the presents, he gets in the sleigh and goes around the world with Charlie on a magical night that ends with them at the North Pole. Scott wakes up the next day, back at home, thinking it was a dream until some time later he gets a house full of naughty or nice lists. He grows a huge belly out of nowhere, and any time he shaves, his beard is instantly grown back. This, however, causes problems with his ex-wife, who believes it's unhealthy for Charlie and that Scott is playing games to mess with his head. This is where the heart of the movie is, and is about Scott becoming less selfish and about him reconciling with his son, who is now in the middle of a bitter custody battle. I like how this movie deals with more human elements, but never lets up on the fun or magic, and I think Tim Allen is great in the role and brings a lot of laughs. I also like this movie's take on elves as well. They look like kids but are hundreds of years old, so they seem wise but they have the innocence about them that a lot of Christmas movies don't have because they normally just use little people with pointy ears. This movie is how I always imagined the North Pole to be when I was a kid, so I suppose that's why it has a special place in my heart. There's 2 sequels to The Santa Claus, and while I did watch them and don't remember them being the worst movies, I'm mainly recommending the first movie in this list unless you run out of movies to watch and also want to check those out. Now for the next movie on our list, The Muppets Christmas Carol. I've been watching this classic movie ever since I can remember. It follows the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, a grumpy, selfish old man who only cares about himself. He treats his employers and everyone he knows like dirt and lives to make people feel bad. Whether it's his loyal worker Bob Cratchit or his own nephew, no one is immune to the spite of Scrooge. We follow Scrooge on Christmas Eve as he is haunted by his old business partners, Jacob and Robert Marley. They warn Scrooge that the way they lived didn't end up going well for them in the afterlife, and that he will be met by 3 ghosts before the night is done. First, we meet the ghost of Christmas past, where Scrooge travels back in time to visit his most important memories, where we get to see where his life went wrong. Second, we meet my personal favourite, the ghost of Christmas present. This is where Scrooge gets to see the current situation of the lives around him, like the Cratchit family with the good-hearted father, Bob, and his son, Tiny Tim. Even though Scrooge pays him little and treats him like garbage, he still toasts to the good health of his boss, even with his family struggling and having a severely ill son. We also see his nephew and his friends playing a game where Scrooge is the butt of every joke, and this is where Scrooge starts to realise how negatively he affects the world around him with his selfish ways, and he starts to have a more positive outlook after learning important lessons from his newfound ghost friend. Third ghost we meet is the ghost of Christmas yet to come. This is where the story takes a darker turn for Scrooge as he sees what the world will be like after he's gone and hasn't been able to atone for his selfish ways. The Muppets Christmas Carol brings fun and levity to the classic Dickens tale that in most of its iterations is pretty bleak. It's the only version of the story they actually like for that reason. The Muppets bring a great contrast to the tale with their zany behaviour and colourful personalities. The music is a great standout as well. Every song is catchy and serves its purpose to move the story forward. Even when it's not Christmas, I find myself with one of these songs randomly popping into my head. Also, Michael Caine does a great job as Scrooge, going from mean-spirited to showing signs of change throughout, and as usual the Muppets are at their best, being true to the characters they play, but also letting their own personalities shine through. That brings us to the next movie on our list, Home Alone. I'm going to be recommending both movies this time because I personally think they're as good as each other. Both movies start out with Kevin McAllister, the youngest of a large family who feels he's treated like a baby and bullied by his siblings. After having a fight with his brother, he gets sent to bed and wishes that he could live without his family. His wish comes true and he is left alone while his family gets on a plane without him. Kevin initially loves his newfound freedom where he can live like a grown-up and do all the things a young kid wants to do, like eat mountains of ice cream and play with his brother's belongings. All is too good to be true when he meets Harry and Marv, the dumb burglars who are out to steal from Kevin's neighbourhood and a toy shop. Kevin devises a plan though and uses a plethora of household items as traps and weapons to punish the pair of burglars and make them pay for their crimes. I've seen these movies a million times and they never get old, from Kevin's classic one-liners to the hilarious slapstick action that makes me laugh just as much to this day. They are also filled with heart, with Kevin learning life is better with his family and getting to know the supporting characters who he had originally judged and eventually becoming friends with them and helping each other out. Joe Pesci has played some great roles, but this will always be my favourite of his, from his slimy conversations with Kevin to his Muttley-like mutterings when he gets angry. Daniel Stern is also amazing as Marv. He plays getting hurt so well. Every time he screams or shouts for his friend Harry after being electrocuted or hit with bricks, it cracks me up every time. Most of you have probably already seen these two movies, but I highly recommend watching them again or for the first time because you won't be disappointed. The next two movies on the list are two of my all-time favourites and not just my favourite Christmas movies. If I could only watch a few movies at Christmas, they would 100% be on the list. First up is The Nightmare Before Christmas. I've always personally seen this as more of a Christmas movie, seeing as most of the movie revolves around Jack Skellington and the monsters of Halloween Town trying to understand Christmas and make it their own. The movie follows Jack as he has become bored of Halloween and stumbles upon a set of doors in the woods that lead to different holiday dimensions. He travels to the Christmas world and becomes enamoured with all the things that make up Christmas and decides that he has to steal the holiday for his own and kidnap Santa Claus. This is another movie filled with great songs written and performed by Danny Elfman, including This Is Halloween and what has now become a Christmas classic, What's This? The stop motion animation and Tim Burton aesthetic give the movie a look that has stood the test of time. Even though Burton didn't direct this movie, it bleeds his style. The vast and varied cast of the movie are a fun take on new and old horror classics, and it's fun to see their twisted take on the Christmas holiday. I've watched this movie every Christmas Eve and I'll be watching it again this year, and I highly recommend that you should too. The last movie on our list, and probably my favourite, is The Grinch. The Dr. Seuss classic turned into a live-action feature starring Jim Carrey at the height of his career. I love that the movie stays true to the book and cartoon that came before it, but does its own take on it and lets Carey run wild with his usual antics. The movie revolves around the Grinch, a grumpy green furry creature that was shunned by the Whos of Whoville and now lives up in the mountain with his loyal dog Max. That made the Grinch bitter and hate Christmas, the thing that the Whos seem to live for. On the other side of that is Cindy Lou Who, a young girl who is questioning what it means to believe in Christmas and who questions whether the Who's are focusing on what's most important about it. Her and the Grinch collide one day, which makes her offer up his name for an award and makes the Grinch want to steal Christmas after the ceremony goes wrong. This movie takes the Dr. Seuss world right off the page, whether it's the crazy clothes and hairstyles of the Who's or their upturned and animal-like noses. The Grinch looks perfect as well, and exactly how you would imagine him in real life. Carey brings a great range to the character, who's grumpy, bitter, deviant one minute to flying off the rails the next in one of Carey's signature outbursts. Deep in the centre of the movie is a message of acceptance and to teach what Christmas is meant to be about, which is spending time with your family over getting a million presents. All of the movies I've picked on this list have similar messages, which is why I think I love them to this day. As you get older, the fun and excitement for Christmas fades, but these movies remind me what always remains is the love for your family and friends, and a good time of the year to get together out of the cold, have some nice food and a bit of drink if that's your thing. This year has been a tough one, and most of us won't be able to see our loved ones due to the government restrictions, so hope that this list can at least help you get some form of escape or give you that festive feeling while you chill out by the fire. Thank you to everyone who supported this channel. It's been a fun new venture and I can't wait to bring you lots more videos next year. I hope you all have a great Christmas and a happy new year. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. This is the Movie Thingamabob. Until next time, goodbye.